Hello everybody and welcome to Race 3 of the Radical Racing Challenge here on Apex Racing TV. We're at Green Hell, the Nordschleife at the Nürburgring. We have a very interesting race and a very abridged pre-race show. I'm your host Ron Mullins. Joining me in the commentary booth is JR Gregory with Joshua Wilkie in the production hauler. Now, JR, I think we have a very interesting race on our hands, certainly an interesting track, and with these cars and the way they've raced so far, I think it's going to be a very interesting race for these drivers as well.
Oh, I agree 100%, and I cannot wait to see this one unfold. The Radical SR10, a great vehicle with which to attack this classic track. You always feel an extra bit of nerves when you come on the Nordschleife. You always feel an extra bit of pride when you pull off a good race here because it is so difficult, so technical. 13 miles, 150 plus corners, and last time we were here, it was a barn burner. I'm expecting a lot more of the same.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch that race. I caught like the final 5 or 10 seconds of the broadcast when I got off stage at high school graduation. So, very abridged pre-race. As I said, we are going to get the grid here soon. It's a very interesting setup. Usually we have usually we have practice, qualifying, and then we get into the race. But with the way these broadcasts are, usually a bit more chaotic towards the start of these races as we see cars lining up on the grid here. Interesting race on our hands here. It is the number 4 of Matthias Martensen, sorry for the butchered pronunciation, on the pole position with Philip Vanden Herk in P2. Very mixed up grid that we have here. We have Blanco in 3rd. We have a lot of names returning to the series. Robert Woodward, we haven't seen this year. He is racing tonight, but we also have the absence of Kane Halliburton, who has won the past 2 races so far this season. He will not be racing with us tonight. That is unfortunate because he has been he's been a bullet so far this year. So the drivers in this field will actually have a chance. Me personally, I'm going to put my money on Philip Vanden Herk. He's always been fast in this series. We're going to get the lights on. It is going to be 5 lights out, and away the drivers go. Very short run going into turn 1. It was a decent start there from Martensen from the pole. He takes the lead going into turn 1. That's Herc, my pick early on, and he makes a mistake coming out of turn 1, and is very close. He does not make any contact with anyone else. With the tight nature of this track, that's a Christmas miracle that he managed to go through that cleanly.
And another miracle for Blanco, and an early curse, commentator's curse there by Ron. Blanco lurking around in there in the background, and I was going to have my eye on him and Van Herk during the race, and Van Herk has got a job in front of him now, as likely do a number of other people in the back. Some people don't get a qualifying time here, so we may have some fast drivers working their way through traffic here in the early going.
Oh yeah, definitely, and you do have a lot of chances to overtake, and luckily for some drivers, there's a lot of opportunities to have some kind of mistake, so you can grab a position just in the span of a blink of an eye, really. You can make a mistake here really easily with the high curbs, just hit those at the wrong way. You can shoot yourself off the road. And at a track like this where there's little to no runoff area, as soon as you go off the road, you're going off the track too. We're right on board with Blanco there, looking back on Pedalist running in 3rd. It's a pretty tight pack that we have, all things considered, and not too many mistakes. We see some field shuffling there. You can see on the other ticker there a battle between Walters and Illig, and now Illig gets passed by Herrick, so Herrick is in the 16th position from a 2nd place start. Certainly a lot of room to make up for him there. We see a battle between Bjorklund and Frederick. They were battling throughout most of the Spa round last week, so expect to see some battling for these two. I say that, and Bjorklund goes off, has a spin. He's going to have to be stopped here for a while so he doesn't rejoin and crush another driver. So that is a very tough break for him. He's going to drop through the field very fast. And you can see on the other ticker there we have trouble for Herc and Walters. They've retired from the race. Well, I say retired. They're just back to the pits. But at a track like this, if you're in the pits, you are really done for. Well, in a series like this, you are done for. There's not a lot of time to make up lost ground. And with how tight this racing is, even if you just go to the back of the field, you have a lot of work on your hands to try and cut through.
Yeah, particularly here, Herc and Walters likely on the virtual tow truck currently, so they're taking a long, slow ride around this 22-mile circuit to even get back to the pits.
I would try and sing Slow Rider there, but my singing skills are absolutely horrible. That's why I wasn't a part of choir in any school year of mine. So Singing aside, we have a very interesting race on our hands. Pretty interesting start. We see some battling here and there, but also a lot of drivers just trying to keep it in line. I think we're going to see a lot of passing on that giant main straightaway. I was tuning into qualifying a little earlier in the evening, around 4:30 Eastern Standard Time, so about 20 minutes, well, about a half an hour before this broadcast started. And what I was seeing was some drivers were doing some very interesting stuff with the gears going down the long straightaway. What they would do is they would go through the gears, obviously, go up to 6th, but then as they climbed up the hill a little bit, they would actually downshift back into 5th to try and bring some RPM back into the motor. So I think we're going to see that come into play here. I saw some drivers just keep it in 5th. I saw some drivers going to 6th and back down to 5th, then back up to 6th as they went over the hill on that straightaway. And another thing as well is you're going to see the massive effect of the slipstream in this series. It's been a big factor so far this season. It was a big factor last week in Spa where we saw an intense, I think it was like a 6 or 7 car battle throughout most of that race. It was absolutely fantastic stuff. So I think on that very long straightaway and the very long flat-out stretches that this track has, I think we're going to see a lot of slipstreaming past. Some of these drivers were hitting about 163 miles an hour at most going down that main straightaway, so I think in the draft you're going to see some drivers try and just tickle the area of 175.
Yeah, and this we're seeing our top 4 here starting to gap out a little bit. You see the gap from McHutchinson back to Friedrich is now over 3 seconds. These top 4 are driving away, and this track isn't exactly characterized by the long straights, but there are a few long straightaways, and as Ron pointed out, big draft operation on these particular cars.
Of course, the biggest issue with the draft is it has the adverse effect going through the corners. You got the dirty air off a car, so really you can't really do a lot of overtaking at certain parts of this track. Not only is there not really any heavy braking zones where you can try and just outbrake another driver, but here at a track that is really driver skill oriented, you see a lot of drivers just at the limit, driving as hard as they can and not really gaining or losing time unless they make a massive mistake. Right now battling the battle, well, for following the battle up at the front. Jesus, I can't get my words out. Following Blanco here, he is very close to the back of Martinson. I think going down the straightaway, I think he might have a shot, but at the same time, if you pull the move off way too early, oh, I say that, and Martinson went off. Martinson went way wide. He touched the grass. I'm shocked that he managed to keep it out of the wall. He's going to have a very bad run here. He is going to be chopped meat going down this straightaway. He is going to be a sitting duck for the most part. He is right now running in 2nd, but by the time this straightaway is over, he could be in 4th. Right now, we're looking from his gearbox view. It's going to be Cundalis looking for the move down the inside there. Those two are going to go side by side. It'll be interesting to see, and it looks like we might have cars going 3 wide. They are going 3 wide, going down that straightaway, and Martinson, after that big mistake, he manages to get back into the lead, started the straightaway in 2nd, went down to 3rd, as now in the lead, and who knows, if he makes a mistake here, he could wind up in 4th. That is some very interesting racing, and I think we're going to see that for these 4 laps. Slipstream playing a massive effect so far. So Martinson, who started from the pole, he didn't have a very easy first lap, but he still leads the first lap. And we have Cudnalis in 2nd, Blanco in 3rd, McHutchinson in 4th, and a very close pack up at the front.
Yeah, we will see some action from this group, and the last time we were here, one of the things that we were observing was the 2nd place driver was kind of hanging around and not being very aggressive, biding his time until the final lap, because as you see there, you get on that back straightaway with the draft generated by these cars, the front car really is extremely vulnerable, and that long final straight is right before start finish, so it might be wise to bide your time until that last lap to make a move.
You've seen it before in this series, and I think we'll see it again tonight. I think we're going to have a last lap pass. Oh, there's contact there. That's between Brown that went off as well, and I believe that was Brown and Woodward. I could be mistaken. That was no, that was Brown and Alamari there. My apologies. Brown, he is dropping back quite significantly at a section of the track like that. no runoff whatsoever, so whenever you go off there, that is total disaster, so tough break for those drivers. We're seeing some shuffling through the field, though. I think the biggest battle, though, is going to be up the front, but this is a very interesting battle, though. 4 cars really in a peloton. I keep mentioning Tour de France references in the series. Take a shot of whatever your favorite beverage is. We do not support drinking alcoholic beverages. Take a shot of root beer every time there's a Peloton reference in this series, but that's really what it is. We have a 4-car pack throughout this field. We have one at the front and one towards the midfield, and this is going to be the one to watch. These drivers are all very close pace-wise. They're all very close just geography-wise compared to how they are on track. Mick Hutchinson is the tail end of this pack, and we saw him. He was involved in the battle up at the front at the season opener 2 weeks ago at Road America. He was just kind of biding his time and waiting behind Halliburton, who ended up scoring the victory that day, and Jules Boots, who we didn't know was actually a driver that we've had in this series before. I'm forgetting his name. It's like on the tip of my tongue right now. But the driver that finished second last week finished second the week before with 2 different names. He raced at a internet cafe and couldn't get into his account, so he had to get into someone else's account and scored 2 second-place finishes. Unfortunately, I don't believe that either of our 1-2 finishers from the last 2 races are racing with us today. Of course, Halliburton is not with us, and neither is that driver. But we're following Mick Hutchinson. He finished 3rd to kick the year off, and right now he is running 4th, looking very feisty on the back of Blanco. He might try and look for a move in the small little section leading up to the carousel. It's going to be close for these drivers. It's an interesting area to try and make a move. Do you think you would go for the move, JR?
You know, I think as I was saying, oof, Blanco. Not sure if he was covering the inside there. Looked like he chopped across the nose of McCutcheon there. And yeah, I think this is a completely legit place for a pass. The draft is definitely in operation, and you might even be tempted to do this high-speed 5th gear, 6th gear left-hander here side by side if you were feeling extra determined and that we're getting to later stages of the race.
Yeah, if you're definitely bold, you try and go for some bold moves here. You can really just play mental gymnastics with another driver, because here it's really, you got to put so much focus to keep the car on the road at track as challenging as this. And we have seen mistakes from the front runners. We saw last lap Mortensen had that mistake towards the end of the lap. I saw some mistakes very similar to that the first race, actually no, sorry, qualifying for this race, where drivers would just go into the carousel way too hot, hit the berm of the banking, and just kind of launch themselves into the barrier. So we might see that sometimes. We saw that with Mortensen there, because he just went a bit too close to the edge for the banking, and that cost him dearly. He got away with it, though. He's still leading, and right now he's actually pulling a bit of a gap between himself and Cuddless, so this is a very feisty battle we've got here.
Yeah, he is, Ron, and I'll tell you what, Martinson is determined right now. He does not want Kundus within the striking distance when he gets to the straight, and he is beating that Radical to death. He is uprighting the curbs and taking some real chances. The aero on these cars is dependent on the front splitter being close to the track, and when you start playing around on the curbs, it can break the seal. And look at that, that is great camera action by our producer Josh, as we see these high downforce cars getting 4 wheels off the ground at flue plots. Wow.
It was a mix of getting wheels off the ground and getting wheels into the dirt there. That was very close there. He had a bit of a flashback to how last lap ended. Hopefully we won't have a mistake. Well, hopefully he won't have a mistake in the same section where he went off last lap. This is a very tough corner. You think you can carry a lot of speed into it, but then that exit coming out of there, you get a little bit tail happy there. You get the rear end just a tiny bit up in the air going through there. So that's a very interesting corner on this lap. I mean, there's just so many interesting corners. You can't really name what a driver's favorite is. It's a driver's favorite track, really. I know for years, back when I was like an 8-year-old, playing on my old, playing Forza Motorsport 4 back on my Xbox 360, I used to drive this track all the time. So I'm sure drivers, young and old, love driving this place because it's just a fantastic track to drive. As we see a battle there between Blanco and Cunadelis. Blanco takes second position there.
Yeah, there you see that draft at work as Blanco blows past Candelas like he's pulling an anchor. Meanwhile, Martinson up front, as I said, showed some determination trying to stretch out that gap to P2 prior to hitting the straightaway, and that determination has paid off. He's only got a half-second gap, but he did not face any threat to that P1 coming down to the end of that back straight.
Really, what you need to do at this point with Cuddless, I'm really sorry, I'm probably saying his name different every time I say it, but we're seeing these two battling so often that I think if you're Mortensen, you can just keep the car on the road and wait for these two to keep battling and keep slowing each other down, and I think that'll be a fairly surefire way to score a win here, because, I mean, we saw last race where a 2-car battle became a 3-car battle, that became a 4-car battle, and towards the end of the race, it was between 4th position and 10th, really, in one camera shot, just neck and neck. So
Yeah,
we've seen a lot with this series, how just battling hard can change it.
Yeah, absolutely, and those 2-car battles will kind of take some pace off of both cars, allowing the cars from behind to catch up, and that's what led to that extremely entertaining train that Ron was referring to from last week. McCutcheon, too, might benefit from the dicing back and forth between Blanco and Candelas if he can just hang with this train. One mistake between those two, and he's looking good for P2.
Oh yeah, he's definitely in the catbird seat. I mean, being in 4th, you're getting the most draft, yet also he's really just minding his own business at the moment. He's just sitting back with a bowl of popcorn, minding his own business, and I say that he is very close to the back of Candelas there. They're very close. I don't think we'll see a move here. I say that every call I've made so far this race about predictions has gone terribly wrong, as we saw the other call I made with Hurrick, who started from 2nd. I said he was my favorite to win, and he's currently 23rd in the pit, so very forgettable race for him. So maybe I shouldn't make any predictions. Maybe I'll make a commentator's curse. We're still... I mean, we've had so much action so far throughout this race, and we're still a little over halfway, so we've still got pretty much a lap and a quarter to go, which at a normal track, a lap and a quarter would be nothing. At a track like this, where the pole position time was about a 6-minute 30, just a lap and a half is so much time to work with. These drivers have about 10 minutes left to work with in this race, so there's still a lot to play for here. McCutcheon could just wait back and relax and try and go for a move on the last lap. We saw how powerful the slipstream was to get 3-wide action on lap 1. McCutcheon, if he plays his cards right, he could end up with the lead, entering that straightaway from 4th on the last lap.
Yeah, he absolutely could, and looks like we've kind of got 2 trains in the front now. We got Martinson, Blanco, Candelas, and McCutcheon 1 through 4 packed in together, and behind them, Crab, Friedrich, and Roca. Looks like they're within about 0.6 with a 4-second gap behind them. So trains tend to form up with these cars, and that's one of the most entertaining sources of racing that we've seen thus far here in season, 3? Are we in season 3 now? Ron?
Season 3 of 2023.
Yeah, there we go.
This is definitely going to be something that will play into effect throughout all of the races this year. I think we're going to see a lot of train action here. We're seeing some action there, period. That was a pass from Frederick, and they're going side by side. Frederick and Crab are very close. This is an area where you don't usually see side-by-side action, but those two were going side-by-side, and it's still a 3-car pack here. The drivers are very close. They are driving on the edge here. Roka's just kind of sitting there minding his own business. I think he's probably looking at the battle between Frederick and Crab and seeing that heat up, and I think the battles are going to heat up a lot more. I think there's Frederick going wide there. I think this will be an interesting fight between these two. Yeah, Frederick dropped back. I wonder what happened to him. He is dropping back like a rock, going very slowly, so I'm not sure what happened there. But yeah, very interesting stuff so far at a track like this. In this section, really, I think we're going to see a lot of single-file action, which single file and action really don't go together, but it is really action, because you'll see these drivers just driving on the edge of control, on the edge of grip. I think you're going to see a lot of these drivers pushing their cars to the limits, and regardless of what series you're in, watching a top-class talent drive their cars to the limit is always fantastic to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And back up to McCutcheon here. He looks like he's fallen back a little bit. I'm not sure what happened with him, but he's starting to, that train's starting to slip away from him over a second now, separating him from Candelas in P3. and he's still got plenty of space behind. But if that train gets away from him, if you're not there when it leaves the station, you're going to be late for work.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great way to put it there, JR. I think McHutchinson, I mean, he's definitely not in a bad position. I mean, he's running 4th really, unless he has a catastrophic mistake in the final lap and a quarter here in this race. I think he's going to come home with a fairly easy P4, so we'll just have to wait and see. I think it's now become a 3-car battle here between Martinson, who's led from the pole position, certainly hasn't had an easy race. We saw a mistake from him on lap 1 in this corner right here. Gets through cleanly from the looks of it. Let's see if the other drivers do. Yes, they do. So this will be interesting. Right now, it's Martinson ahead of Blanco by about 0.8 of a second, and that's a gap between Blanco and Cunliffe of about, that is half a second. So I think that will be the battle to watch here between Blanco and Cunliffe. These drivers are going to be very close, and this back is going to close up quite a lot. It's already closed up quite a lot. Just on this straightaway alone. I was talking about how these drivers were going about a 163 at most going down the straightaway. Look at that, going 171. Just shows you how big of an effect the slipstream plays. There's Blanco pulling out, and there's Cudless. It looks like he nearly tried to go for a bump draft there. Arnson, who started the straightaway nearly a second ahead of these drivers, is going to end the straightaway in 3rd. That just shows you how ridiculous the draft is here.
Wow, that was a fantastic sequence there. I would say that calling that careening those 3 cars coming off the back straight into that first section of corners is a good description. They were beating those cars to death, and this is the kind of action that we signed up for when we're broadcast the Radical Challenge.
I think we're going to see some more action here between Cunliffe and Martinson. These drivers are very close. Martinson, I'm sure he wants to win this race badly. We haven't seen him in the series so far, so I'm sure he wants to take a victory at Green Hill, because that's always a nice feather to put in your cap, regardless of what series you're racing in. So there's still a lot to play for here. We are on the final lap, but again, at a track like this, you've still got miles and miles to cover. It's a 13-mile track, I believe, and right now we're probably about a mile, mile and a half, maybe 2 miles into it, so we've still got a lot to play for here. We're riding on board with Martinson here. He is very close. These drivers are extremely close to each other. Ooh, that was very close. Martinson was nearly in the grass there trying to pull off a move on Cunliffe, and now Cunliffe looks like he's going to pull out and try and pull off a move on Blanco. He's going to try and go round the outside. He pulls off the move round the outside. It's going to be a battle of the last breakers, the last of the late breakers going into the turn. I can barely speak. This is so exciting. Martinson, he managed to follow through. He managed to kind of leave Blanco out to dry there. I think Blanco's probably going to look for some kind of retribution after he really got screwed over by his competitors there. I mean, I say screwed over. He didn't get intentionally wrecked or anything like that. Just good, clean, and very hard racing between these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, Blanco might... that move in the long run may have actually benefited Blanco. We saw P3, I think, move up to either P1 or P2 the last time off the back straight. This is the final lap. That's the position Blanco is in now. If I were him, I would just stay about 0.2, 0.3 seconds off the bumper of Martinson and see if I can get something going on coming off that final straightaway before start-finish.
It's really absurd. Those drivers were about, I think it was a second and a half separated entering that straightaway, and then just midway through it, they were already basically 3 wide. So really, it may spread out through the final section of turns at this track, but that's really just it's just the dirty air playing its effect, and these drivers racing as hard as they can. But as soon as they get onto the back straightaway, really, all's fair in love and racing. And I think Blanco, you said, I really agree with you there. I think he's in a very good position, but Martinson is also in a very good position. He's looking very racy to try and get the move done on Cunliffe in the middle part of this track. Looks like he was trying to look for the outside, then the inside, then back to the outside, then back to the inside, but doesn't have the speed to pull that move off just yet. But this section has also been interesting. We've seen some battling throughout the field in this section of the track, and I think we might see some more here. Martinson, I don't think he's going to lift on the last lap of a race. Really, should he lift? I think he probably won't, so he is very close to the back of Cunliffe there. Ooh, now Blanco's very close to the back of Martinson there. They are very close. One mistake between any three of these drivers and the outcome could be very grim here. Drivers are very close. Blanco hit the curb quite a lot there. He manages to get through it cleanly. With the killer curbs that this track has, you can't really get away with a curb hit like that, especially at high speeds. But he managed to do it.
Definitely not. That is surprising, and as I said, particularly in these cars, if you hit those curbs high enough to get that front splitter away from the track, the downforce will completely stall out, and you'll have a lot less grip and instantaneously, and that can lead to disaster at the speeds these cars are going.
Yeah, definitely. I think this will definitely play an effect here at this section of the track. You want to give it all. You want to use as much track as you can, so we might see a small little curb hit on the inside. That might wreak havoc to this battle, but this is still incredibly close. Last lap, they were separated about 2 seconds, maybe a second and a half going on to that big straightaway. Right now, they're only separated about a half a second, so this is going to be very close coming to the finish here. We're following Cutlass. He has really been up the front all day. We've seen Martinson really lead a majority of the lap so far. He's led a majority of the race, period. Led from the pole, had the mistake on lap 1, but has put together a very good race. All these drivers really have put together a good race. And it's going to be a 3-car battle unless something major happens or unless McHutchinson finds some kind of Mario Kart-style shortcut that none of the other drivers have found. It's going to be a 3-car battle here with just a few corners to go. These drivers are incredibly close. They're still incredibly close, even with the dirty air effect that these cars have. This is absolutely exciting racing here. Martinson is very close to the back of Cunliffe, as he has been for the past, really this entire lap. So this is going to be very close, but keep your eye on Blanco. He is definitely going to play an effect in this race. He's going to get the slipstream. Martinson's going to get the slipstream, and Cunliffe is going to be a sitting duck here going onto the main straightaway. This is going to be absolutely exciting racing here. They're going through the final corner, and our battle is set up.
Yeah, that time through, Cunliffe really needed to light the wick and create some distance between him and Martinson behind, as we saw Martinson do earlier on in the race. Lap 1, he managed to create a gap there, but Cunliffe, as sitting duck, as Ron said, the gap not coming down as much as you would think here, though. He moves to the right to break the draft. Martinson goes over behind, running out of time here. There's one last little kink to the left.
Close enough very closely, though. He is close enough very fast. He's going to pull out very late, trying to make the move stick. And Blanco now goes for it. They made contact there. That was very close, and there's contact there. All three of them made contact there, and that is disaster between Martinson and Cutlass. So it looks like Blanco is going to take the win. He started that straightaway in third. He is going very slowly here, though. Going incredibly slowly here. What is going on? Maybe he has a slowdown? I'm not sure what's going on there. McHutchinson is going to... Oh no, Blanco took the win. Okay. I was about to say, I got confused as to where the start-finish line was. The start-finish line was just like a couple hundred yards down the road. That would have been a photo finish, but still, an incredible finish there. Blanco started that straightaway in third. He manages to take the victory. There might be a little controversy there because all three of those drivers were being and banging each other, but when trying to battle for a victory at Green Hell, regardless of what series you're racing in, some fisticuffs are going to break out. People are going to get their elbows out, and they're going to try everything in the book to try and score the victory, and that's what we saw right there.
Absolutely, and I know Josh will have a replay of that for us here as we do the wrap up and bring some of these drivers in for interviews. But McHutchinson, as we said before, is hung with the train for a while, dropped back a second or two, got developed, and my goodness, last lap, the last couple hundred yards, and McHutchinson is spitting out his popcorn that he's been eating for the whole race and finds himself in P2. Unbelievable.
Gotta imagine he was just kind of like resigned to the fact that he was gonna finish, just resigned to the fact that he was gonna finish in fourth. I mean, I really resigned himself to that fact. I said, unless he finds a Mario Kart style shortcut, he's gonna finish in P4, and look what happened. The top two crashed. Blanco was going very slowly, and he was a second and a half and a couple of hundred yards away from scoring that victory. That just shows you how insane some of these finishes can be, as we see a very wounded Radical there coming through the final series of corners. Tough break for those drivers. We're going to get a replay here. Blanco went 3 wide. Ooh, this is going to be very close here. Yeah, I think that was... Blanco, I think, made contact there with Martinson there. That was definitely rear-to-front contact between those two drivers. That probably spun and veered Martinson into the wall. But as for the mistake that we saw, a very clear mistake there from the other driver that was looking like maybe a surefire win, definitely a surefire second, and very obviously a surefire podium. The other trouble you saw there for, that was Cunliffe. I think that was just a mistake all on his own. He really just went off the track there, hit the grass, and just spun it around. So he was probably trying to avoid those two ahead of him because he was probably thinking these two knuckleheads are going to hit each other. And sure enough, they did. If you managed to get through that cleanly, I think he would have definitely taken the victory there. So very tough break for those drivers. Certainly some annoyed drivers, but if you're Blanco, you're probably, I don't know, you're probably going to be pooping rainbows for the rest of the night because I'm sure he's very ecstatic. Take the win, his first victory of the season. We saw him win last year at VIR, which is considered the Nürburgring of North America, which I've always disagreed with because the Nürburgring is fun in my opinion. But Blanco, he's always been a very good contender, as we're seeing Glenn cross the line to finish 21st, the last of our finishers. He had a tough race, had a mistake early on, but getting back to Blanco, he's always been a decent contender in this series. He's always been towards the front, and tonight he scores the victory at the Green Hell under somewhat controversial circumstances, definitely dramatic circumstances that we saw there. I can't even speak. I'm slurring my words. I'm doing all the stuff. Blanco takes the win, 1.3 seconds ahead of Mick Hutchinson. That was so close for a driver that was about 5 seconds back, starting that straight away. We see Martinson. I'm sure he's probably a bit annoyed to finish third, but he still put on a very good drive. Crab, we didn't see a lot of him. He finishes in fourth with Roca in fifth. Smith in sixth. We saw Andreas Frederick finish in seventh. He was involved in a battle. We saw Alamari. We didn't really see him too much. He finishes in eighth. Fuchs in seventh. Robert Woodward, who returns to the series, we saw him a lot last year. He finishes in 10th, ahead of Cundless, who started that lap in second and finishes it down in 11th. So very tough break for him. Looking through the rest of the field, we have Luke Santos, Illig. Well, Santos is in 12th. Illig is in 13th. We have Duarte, I apologize for that pronunciation there, in 14th. Brown in 15th. Dibiden in 16th. I'm really butchering these pronunciations. I apologize. I am trying my hardest, but for a hick like myself, I can't really pronunciate them well. Lindlau is in 17th. We see him through these series a lot. Gonzaga in 18th. That was a pretty quiet race from him. He finishes 46 seconds behind the winner, Blanco. So that completes your top 18. We're going to look through the rest of the field, but a lot of these drivers were no factors or involved in incidents early on. We saw 3 drivers that were retired from the race. Pull up the other results here. We had in 19th, we had Renshaw, sorry, I apologize for that pronunciation there. We have a Jagerlener, I really apologize for that likely butchered pronunciation, in 20th. Bjorklund, we saw that mistake from him towards the early part of the race. We saw an incident there. He spun right as I was talking about him possibly being involved in a battle to maybe even win this race. It's a very tough break for him. He was the last of the actual finishers of this race. We have a De Pepe in 22nd. He pulled into the pits during that race. We saw Herrick have that very dramatic and sure for him very frustrating start. He finishes in 23rd after getting involved in an incident with Walters, I believe, as both of them pulled off very early on to this race. So that was absolutely dramatic. That was absolutely fantastic, and that was a very wild finish there, JR.
Yeah, and we saw that a couple times, and if we have some interview action here at the end, maybe we can take another look at it, maybe a little slower. But it looked like Blanco had just a bit of contact there with Martinson, but I don't think that caused Martinson to go off. Martinson got a little loose. He seemed to collect it, and then whatever happened after that happened as Blanco was driving away, and I couldn't really tell you what it was at this point.
I personally think there was definitely contact that led to that incident because, I mean, we've seen with these cars, if you get the rear just a little bit up in the air, just changed the weight balance slightly. We saw this definitely on full display last year when the cars drove really like a declawed cat trying to climb up an igloo, really. But we've seen with these cars how just a little bit of weight transfer in the wrong direction can lead to total disaster, and we probably did see that with Martinson there, so very tough break for him. Lots of somewhat annoyed drivers, I'm sure, after that result. Definitely Blanco, I'm sure he's probably very ecstatic to take a victory there. He was probably going to be contending there. I think it was going to be a side-by-side finish coming across the line, but we saw what happened there. So it doesn't look like we're going to get an air review, so that will do it for tonight's broadcast. Certainly a dramatic race and part of a very dramatic season. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Jair Gregory joining me in the commentary booth with Joshua Wilkie doing a very good job in the production hauler. I'm Ron Mullins. Take care, and I hope to see y'all next Friday. Bye-bye.